Welcome back, everyone, to the Cart Barn Podcast. Chris Lemley and Gregg Dewalt, and we're glad to have you. Gregg, a lot of things going on in the golf scene these days. We just finished up this weekend the start of the FedEx Cup up in Memphis. Justin Rose outlasted JJ Spaun in a playoff. It was pretty exciting.
That was a pretty good ending to that tournament. I think a lot of people thought Fleetwood was going to break through for his first win, and it just didn't happen for him. It'll happen at some point, I think. But Justin Rose was incredible down the stretch.
He was. And the weekend before, I was actually playing golf in Birmingham at a pretty nice facility. And on the end of the range, I noticed a figure that was recognizable, and it was Justin Rose working very hard with his coach, Mark Blackburn. And I think Sepp Straka showed up for just a few minutes at the end of that too, but he was working really hard. And so hard work pays off. So congratulations to him.
I think if you were on the first tee and JJ Spaun showed up with his clubs, would you think he would just beat your brains in?
Maybe not before this year's success that he's had. Really didn't know anything about him till the Players Championship, where he kind of really broke on the scene for me.
I mean, he's had an incredible year.
He has.
And the playoffs still should probably going on in Memphis. I don't know. He missed that putt that was fairly simple. It looked like it was fairly simple.
Well, it probably was simple on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but Sunday afternoon in the playoff, he made a pretty good one just to keep it going though. So
he did. But yeah, so he's had an incredible year, but he just doesn't look like that guy that would, be an elite player. Just
no
appearance.
No, I agree. And then, the U.S. Women's Amateur was this past weekend also. I think we only had one person from the state that was in the field.
Scarlett Schremer.
Yeah.
Made it through qualifying and then got beat in the first round. I know she's probably a little disappointed with that. But, also just looking back to the pros Sunday, Stuart Sink, friend of the Cart Barn podcast, came to 18 needing a birdie to get in a playoff and just didn't get it done. He actually led by 3 going into the final round. And then Robbie Shelton, another Alabamian, had a chance to win on the Korn Ferry Tour and came up just short, a couple late bogeys. Yep. And then Christo Lamprecht chipped in on the last hole made a bunker shot on the last hole to win that one. So it was a good weekend. And we also had state match play was finished up over at Terrapin Hills in AGA event.
Yeah. Well, just before, real quick, and we'll come right back to the state match play because it's a great segue into this week's guest. But we've got starting today is the men's U.S. Amateur, and gosh, I don't have a list in front of me, but we've got a lot of representation out there.
Yeah, they're playing a nice little golf course, the Olympic Club. I walked that in the U.S. Open late 90s, and man, that is a tough golf course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was around 98 maybe. Good luck to the guys from the state that are playing in that. Back to the state match play and the senior match play. That was, as you said, at Terrapin Hills over in Fort Payne. And on the senior side, Shaw Pritchett beat his good buddy and 4-ball partner, Jeff Taylor, to win the senior division. And we're in discussions with Shaw right now to schedule a time for him to sit down with us. But speaking also of Fort Payne, this week's guest is a native of Fort Payne, has built a phenomenal business in the golf management business. Trune Golf. Many of you have heard of Troon. You see some of the guys on tour with Troon on the bags, and that's the business that was founded by a guy from Fort Payne, Dana Garmany.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's a rags to riches story, but Dana grew up playing this 9-hole DeSoto Golf Club, I think is what he told us.
Mm-hmm.
I assume it's still in existence. I've never played it. But I mean, he's just a kid who grew up, good friend of Don Shirey, and just they grew up playing together. And then all of a sudden, a few years later, opportunity presented itself, and Dana ran with it and carved out a nice little career for himself. Now I guess he's retired, but he still sits on the board of Troon. So, but it's an amazing story, fantastic story, and we enjoyed having him tell us about it.
Absolutely. The number of courses that are under management, plus there's a lot of other things that they offer now that I didn't even know about until kind of started looking into this and then talking with Dana. But um, for those of you in Alabama, one of the courses that you and I recently had the privilege of playing is under their management's Pine Tree there in Birmingham.
Yep.
And what a phenomenal facility. That's always been one of my favorite golf courses and a lot of other people's as well. And it was just in really, really good condition, but it's a Troon managed golf course.
Yeah, I've played so many Troon courses. I've been fortunate. I've been invited to play several of their properties out in Scottsdale, in Florida. Mystic Creek in Arkansas is a Troon
Mm-hmm.
facility, and it's amazing. I mean, it's just brilliant golf course. So it was really fun to get to talk to Dana about his business model and how it came about. And he said he's just a preview. He said he's been lucky, but there's a lot behind the luck involved. So
That's right. Well, without further ado, let's get into this week's podcast. Hope you enjoy it with Dana Garmany. Welcome back to the Cart Barn Podcast. We're excited to be with you today, and thanks for joining. Many of you probably know of or have heard of Trune Golf, but if you don't, you probably have played at one of their facilities at some point. Trune Golf, which is now headquartered in Scottsdale, Arizona, is the world's largest golf and golf-related hospitality management company, and they were founded by today's guest, Dana Garmany from Fort Payne, Alabama. Dana, welcome to the Cart Barn.
Thanks, guys. Good to be with you.
I'm glad to have you.
treat to have you on, Dana. I guess the first question I have is, how does a guy from Fort Payne, Alabama, come up with a dream of having such a wide-ranging conglomerate of golf facilities under their direction?
But a lot of it was pure luck. But yeah, it was growing up in Fort Payne, it was a bit of a different environment than today. But yeah, it's one of those things where being in the right place at the right time, and having a couple of ideas that worked, it made it okay. But you look, it's I'm not gonna sit here and say it was some perfect dream that I lived out. It was a lot of luck, a lot of being in the right place at the right time, as I said, and a lot of timing. Some of the timing stuff was perfect for it, so it worked out really great, and here we are. Although I'm retired, by the way, guys, I'm doing very little. I'm always on vacation every day.
Well, that's great. So, Dana, how did you kind of get into the game of golf? Where was that beginning?
Well, I mean, I think I grew up in a small town where there weren't very many people that played golf. We originally just had a little 9-hole club there, and then we have another golf course opened a few years later. But there were not that many guys that played, but there were a few, and some that a couple of guys my age played. We had a golf team in school, and I had a good friend named Don Shirey. I think you guys know. Who we grew up together. He was a bit older than me, but we grew up playing golf together, and we also played the other sports. Because in Fort Payne, if you wanted to have a date, you better be playing a sport, because you can't be a non-jock in a little town like that. So you played everything.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and then Don and I sort of when we were out of season of the other sports, we just started playing a lot of golf together. And there was a few decent players. We had a guy in town that played at Jacksonville State on the golf team. We had a guy in town that played at Alabama. So we had some people that played good golf. So we kind of modeled ourselves after that, and then moved on from there. And then we got better. I mean, obviously, we got enough to play a little bit of golf at a higher level, and Don higher than me. But from there, when I sort of figured out that my game wasn't going to travel well, at a certain point, I figured I'd better do something else, and so that's what led me here. Although my original path was to go to law school, so that didn't pan out because I liked being in the business of golf, and so that's where I ended up.
When did you kind of first fall in love with the game? Because you, like you say, mentioned you were playing other sports too, and then kind of transitioned to golf.
Well, we essentially with this little 9-hole club, Don and I would meet at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we would just circle that little 9 holes and play 54 holes a day. And sorry, we're in the flat pattern here in Flagstaff. Sorry, but we would just go around the golf course all the day, and somewhere around midday, his mom would drive up and drop hamburgers off for us, and we'd pick those up and keep eating and keep playing. So we loved it. We loved the individual aspect of it, and the fact that your own efforts or how it stood out. It wasn't a team effort; it was you individually, and we would just keep going. So I would say probably around 12 or 13, it became really important to us. And along about that time, I think Don and I both idolized Johnny Miller, who was on his really hot streak there, and starting in '72 through about '77, and we loved the way he played golf. We loved the way he hit his irons, and we just sort of watched that, mesmerized by his accuracy. And although we never got that accurate ourselves, we certainly liked to watch him play. And I mean, Palmer was obviously a part of it, and all those great players of that '60s and '70s era. Of course, you couldn't watch it on TV very much. It was hard to see very much of it. So you read the newspapers and you tried to figure out who played well, and you got the news when you could. It's a whole different world than it is today. But we certainly enjoyed watching the golf that was on TV. And we always watched the majors. We always watched the Masters, and we always dreamed of getting better and playing at a higher level. So that was kind of the thing that we did every day that we could when we weren't doing something else.
Yeah. Don told the story on our podcast about you guys committing to hitting golf balls every day for a year.
Yeah, and we did in the sleet and the snow and crap like that. But when you're that age, you're kind of impervious to almost everything. I mean, I get cold out. Anything under 75, I have a sweater on, and anything under 50, I'm not going to go there. So it's a pretty simple world for me now. But my golf now is played when it's absolutely perfect. Of course, you live in Arizona. Somebody said, "Do you have your umbrella and your rain suit?" I said, "I live in Arizona. I'm never using a rain suit. I'm never using an umbrella. If I have that, I'll play another day. It's 350 days a year. It doesn't rain here, so I'm pretty sure I could pick another one."
There you go.
I'm just going to assume that you and Don had some epic matches on those 54 hole days at a 9-hole golf course.
Well, we did. I mean, Don was a bit older, so he was a bit better than me early. And then, really, an interesting story about Don, and I don't know if you guys got into this, but Don was a better basketball player than he was a golfer through high school. He was a walk-on at Auburn, and I always blame him. The reason that my golf career went longer than it should have was I was like, that guy's not that good, and he's on the tour. So, but what happened was Don went to Auburn and he started playing harder golf courses and getting the ball in the air higher and things like that. And so, he had I peaked out at about 19 with my golf game, and Don probably peaked out in his 30s, but he really became a really good player in his late 20s and into middle 30s. But he probably would tell you this, that he got on the tour too quickly, and his game wasn't really ready at the point he first got out there. And then when he kind of fine-tuned it later, he became a really good player, was in the top 10 in greens and regulation, really great ball striker, and just a good human being too, by the way. But it was just a fun time for us. And yeah, we had all sorts of matches, and everything was, we're playing Nicklaus down the stretch. When you're making up all these stories, and after you play 54 holes of golf, you go to the putting green, you putt and chip, and you do all these things. And I can't even believe my back stood up to it. I mean, I'm suffering today with hips and back from doing all that, but we had a great time. We sure did.
We got a up close and personal view of his golf game on tour for a little while, didn't you?
Yeah, but I think I was between college semesters or something like that. I think I went out there with him for a little bit, and
yeah,
I think at that point in 1979, Don's game was about as good as my caddying. Neither one were very good, and they weren't tour ready. So we were thrust into something that we both neither one ready for. We had some great stories. I mean, there'd be stories of me giving him a golf club, him trying to take another one, and I'd pull the golf bag away from him and say, "No, you're hitting that one." So we had a lot of that kind of thing going on, and Don made a big transition in his golf game. Once he was smart enough to know that 79, 80, 81 time frame, the golf game he played with a really strong grip and hitting big hooks was not gonna go well, and so he completely made a transition to I would call more of a Johnny Miller grip, a weaker Bill Rogers grip, kind of that weaker grip, eliminate the left side of the golf course and play, because it's funny because Don, even though he was a little bit like me, even though he'd a draw, most of the shots got us in trouble was a block, because you're fearing the hook and you leave it to the right, so you can't have a two-way miss. And so he corrected that, and had a pretty darn good career there for 10, 12 years, and did well. So I'm very proud that he did that, and thankfully for me, it took me about 18 months to figure out that my game wouldn't travel well. And what I always talked about with my golf game was my A game was probably good enough. My B game was not near good enough, and you can't toss a 75 in the middle of a 4-round tournament. It just doesn't work well. And so Don could get the ball around when he wasn't playing well. And I think you could go back and look at some of the Tom Watson rounds when he played. He was probably the best at sort of gouging it around there when he wasn't playing well. Watson could hit 8 greens and shoot 70. He had that kind of ability to get the ball in the hole and scramble around when he wasn't playing well. And I think that's the biggest difference in sort of the elite collegiate player and the tour players, the guys that because hitting golf balls is a tactical thing. Playing golf's an art, and if you went to a range at a tour event or a college tournament, put a bag on everybody's head, everybody looks the same. But playing golf's an art form, and it takes being able to get the ball up and down, being able to be not frustrated, being able to do the things you want to do when you want to do it, and not being upset about those shots. And the guys that are successful certainly do that. Not that they don't have passion, they get upset, but they have some passion about it, but they also know to keep their head down and keep playing golf.
So my takeaway from your days caddying for Don is that you guys were the original Kevin Costner and Cheech Marin from Tin Cup. You're pulling
that's probably pretty close, and I think there was one time we were this was actually a different time. This was actually when I was actually working in the business, but he qualified for the U.S. Open, and up in Detroit at Oakland Hills, and so he said, "Hey, you want to come caddy?" So I took a week off work and went up with him, and got picked up there. I actually rode in with Payne Stewart in the courtesy car to the Townsend Hotel in Birmingham, Michigan, and so we're out there, and Don, we were supposed to play with Ballesteros one day. It was a lot of just Johnny Miller. It was a cool experience, but it was Detroit in June. It was like 55 degrees or something weird like that, and raining and nasty, and Don's game didn't travel in that kind of weather very well either. So we had been out there, and we were having a really tough day. We got to 16, the famous 16th hole at Oakland Hills, which is around with the willow tree on the corner, and the Gary Player is a famous story about that one, and the dogleg ride over the water. And so Don hits it, second shot, he gets over the hazard, but it's inside the hazard, but it's not in the water. So we go over the green, and he's going to try to play it up on the green, and he kind of half chunks it, and it hits and kind of rolls back in the water. So now he's got to go all the way back on the other side. So basically, I'm supposed to walk back there with him, and I gave him his sandwich and said, "I'll see you back here." So he gave him a golf ball and a sandwich, and "I'll meet you here when you finish the hole." So he did the walk back around the lake by himself, hit the shot up there. So we didn't have a very good day. He played really good the second day, but the first day was put us in bad shape, so we missed the cut.
That's good.
That's great. So, but you ended up getting into business and being a professional. How was that journey begin? And
well, for me. It began because I was a history poli sci guy originally, going to go to law school, and then I'm like, I think right about that time, I think it was, I looked up and saw that starting, this was about late 70s, and we were having the bad inflation under the Carter administration, and I looked up and said average first year lawyers were making about 20 grand a year back then. And I said, wait a minute, 3 more years of school to make 20 grand. That's not going to work very well for me. So I did the really smart thing. I went to work at Atlanta Athletic Club for $8,000 a year as an assistant golf professional over there, and did that for a very short period of time, and stayed in the business, and ended up getting a different degree in hospitality management after that. But the point was, I love being around golf, and once I knew that my game wasn't going to be at a higher level, and that's hard to accept. But the good news about having a little bit of brain power is realizing that you're getting your brains beat out by people, and that you should not continue to carry a dream too far. So very quickly, I was in the workforce. Put it that way.
So you
sorry about the plane noise. Got another plane coming in here.
So you were at Atlanta Athletic Club, and then if I understand correctly, you did transition over to Terrapin Hills back in
I did.
Fort Payne?
I went back to my hometown and worked there for a bit. I mean, I was in Atlanta just for a very short period of time. Went over to Fort Payne, Alabama, back to where I grew up at Terrapin, and I obviously reconnected with a lot of people there. And I had an in there. I was too young to get that job, but I got it. And did that for a few years. Then I moved down to Birmingham to Woodward Country Club, which is an old club that was built in 1916 of all things. And the lucky thing that happened there is the golf course went through a renovation and a clubhouse renovation. So I'd actually been involved in a vertical construction and a golf course construction. So I had a little bit of experience beyond just being in the golf business. And so when my kids were at the age about to go to school, and I said to myself, I'm either going to stay here or I'm going to do something else. And I started applying for a couple of jobs, and I got down to the finals at 2 jobs. One was in Arizona, one was in Missouri, or actually in the Kansas side of Kansas City, in Prairie Village. And those 2 jobs were offered to me at the same time. And this was after I'd been in Birmingham for a number of years. Luckily, I took the job in Arizona because at that point I was able to then start a company shortly after I got out here, and that's kind of where it happened. But a lot of that was just all pure luck. But if I hadn't been offered those jobs, I probably would have stayed in Birmingham a lot longer because I didn't want to move my kids around when they were in school.
Well, so tell us about getting out to Arizona, and was that at Trune North?
Yes. I was the project manager and then the general manager director of golf because the golf course wasn't finished yet. And the beautiful story about Trune North was that the golf course was finished before the roads were finished to get there. So what happened was we had a golf course sitting there completed for 6 months before we could open it. So it was really fun because the public couldn't get there, so the golf course got better and better and better. So by the time it opened, it was absolutely perfect, which gave it a nice send off. And in the meantime, it was things like this were happening. It was a Tom Weiskopf designed golf course, and Tom and I would go play. There was no tee markers, and we would go out there and play. We hadn't put in any markers on the sprinkler heads or anything. We'd go out there and play by feel. So Tom and I would go out and play golf. We grabbed an old maintenance cart, put our bags on the back of it, and we'd take off and play golf with nobody out there except us and the deer and the mountain lions and the other coyotes and everything else around the area, and play golf. And it was a really remarkable experience to be able to do that because the roads were behind schedule getting up there. And so that made it a kind of a fun few months of having a job but really not doing much except playing golf with Tom and with other people around the valley, because we had a lot of golfers that lived here and would be up there. And of course, we had the ASU golf team played there quite often. That was when Mickelson was there, and Phil would come out quite often back then. So it was a really fun time, and I think just while during that era, I don't think ASU won 3 or 4 national championships in that time frame.
Yeah.
I know Tom Weiskopf is a very underrated golf course designer, in my opinion. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for some of his work.
No, that's very true. And actually, the bigger shame was he didn't get in the Hall of Fame before he passed away. That was the bigger shame. He was a terrific player, and he could be volatile at times, but he's a gentleman. He was a great guy when he was sober, and he was many years into his when I knew him, basically. Terrific guy, and he had some of the greatest stories you've ever heard about Nicholas, and all those things he said on TV that he would repeat, and he had other versions of them that we can't talk about here. But he he was I just never had seen anybody hit the ball quite like that with with like a 2-iron, and back then the 1 and 2 irons, they look like a razor blade, right? You could hit those things straight up in the air. And my I had a 1-iron back then too, but it came in about head high and hooking low and hot. And Tom would get up in the air quite a bit more than me. But we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun times. And, we then did another golf course together in Colorado where we would fly up and back together and just had a great time with him. But those first 6 months were kind of fun because we were able to perfect the golf course and get it just right. When the golf course opened, it opened to great acclaim. Got ranked the top 100 in that first segment when it could be. And, of course, part of that was it opened because the roads didn't go in there. It sat there for about 2.5 years without a single house around it. So it was a pretty remarkable experience. And people would play golf and they felt like they were in the middle of the desert, and they were, without anything there except the golf course and the saguaros. It was terrific.
That's cool. Yeah, getting to play with Tom Weiskopf for 6 months, that's hard to beat.
Yeah, here's another good story. Betsy King used to represent Trune North on the tour, and Betsy King, was good enough to play on the men's team at Furman for a while, and she could really play. And there was another couple of women, I won't mention their names, that were on the tour. One of them won a U.S. Open, I won't mention the name. But when I played with them, and it was like they didn't spin the ball. So I would play with them, and I'd feel pretty macho because I hit it by them and I'd hit little spinners and all that stuff, and they couldn't really spin the ball. I played with Betsy, and I'm like, wow, that's different. And I think Betsy was probably one of the first women that really brought the women's game into the modern era of clubhead speed, spin, different shots. I'll never forget the first time I played with her. We got to the second hole at Trune North, which is a par 3, and for me it was about 175, which back in those days was a good 6-iron. That's probably a 9-iron today with the golf ball. But I'm thinking she's going to have like a 4-iron or something like that. And she's got up there, she's got the same club I have. And I'm like, wow, that's just different. And she hits it up there, and it takes one skip forward and then kind of checks up. And I'm like, that's a pretty good shot. Of course, she won a ton of major championships. It was a great player. And so that was fun too. So we had a lot of experiences playing with players. Billy Mayfair grew up there. I played a lot of golf with Billy, and he would be up there quite often. He represented Trune North. He and Betsy were the two tour representatives of Trune North back in that era.
Yeah, it seems like I remember seeing that on his bag. I'd forgotten about it though.
Yeah.
So how did the whole golf management idea get born, and how was it able to grow exponentially?
Well, there's the legendary story, which would be that I was really smart and figured all this out, way before I started. Then there's the real story, which is it was kind of blind luck in a way. Here's how it really happened. When I moved out there, the development of Troon and Trune North had a developer named Jerry Nelson, who became my partner in Trune Golf originally, because he held the trademarks, and I had the sweat equity, but he had a partner from Japan, a Japanese trading company called Nichiman, that owned the golf course wholly, but they were partners in the development. Well, in Japan, it's very hard to sue somebody. In America, it's not very hard to sue somebody. So the Japanese were very, very afraid of employee litigation in America because they knew how easy it was to get sued. So I'm just running the project for them. They walk in one day and basically say, "Hey, if we paid you a percentage of income, would you take the risk and have the employees be on your payroll?" And I did a little research and figured out that the fees that were going to pay me would be more than the insurance to cover myself. And I said, "Yeah." So that's how Trune Golf was really formed, was that little payroll company. So originally it was just a payroll company, and they were paying me a percentage of the revenues, and then I was taking the risk of hiring the employees, and they were on this payroll that I was responsible for, which, by the way, the other thing I had to figure out was every 2 weeks people get paid. Damn, you got to pay them something. It was a tough thing. They're waiting on a paycheck. And so sometimes you don't get a paycheck when you're doing that. But that's how it started, and then literally a few months later, probably was like a year later. I'm like, hey, I have a company. Maybe I should do something else. And so I basically, by that point, I started studying a little bit about hotel management. And I knew kind of how the hotel business worked, and so I really just sort of started forming a company that kind of did the same thing. We would manage for other people, and so I did a second golf course in about 93, a third in 94. three more in 95. And so in 95, 96, I was 7, 8, 9 golf courses I was doing at that point. So, we'd had, a little bit of success, but we were tiny, we were just doing it. But of course, at that time, there was nobody very big in that business. So it wasn't very long before we had some credibility. And every one of those was hard, but then we got to about 20, and then it became, pretty easy to grow.
How does it how does the whole thing work? Do courses approach y'all about management? Do y'all approach courses?
Well, in the early days, it was us approaching people. Obviously, we were trying to figure out how to make money and make payroll and hire more people, because part of the thing we did was we wanted to hire really good people. Basically my success is because I hired people better than me. There's an old saying that Mark McCormick of IMG said, if you look around your boardroom and you see a bunch of lightweights, then you're a lightweight too, because you're the one that hired them. So for me, it was always hiring good talent. So many times I would try to take any company profits we had and just hire more people and try to build the company up where there was a real infrastructure there. So essentially, what Troon does is just exactly what a hotel company does. You have the employees, you have the programs and the processes to do those things, and you report to an owner or a board or whoever you report to as that management company, and you're like giving them an insurance policy. But as we did that, we were approaching everybody at first. Once we had some size and we had a few nice properties, Trune North being, of course, the first one, we started getting calls ourselves, and then we started growing a little bit quicker. And then we did a deal where we started managing all the hotels for Westin Hotels, which of course now is a part of Marriott. Then became Starwood Hotels. Then they were bought by Marriott later. But we did all their original golf early on, so that was a big boost to us to do that. And then along the way we brought in some investors, and my original partner was bought out and went away, and then I stayed in, and we grew the company from there.
Were those early days were courses reluctant to bring y'all in, or saying we can do it as well as anybody?
It depended. We were at first it was almost all developer based. Like, so a developer would be building a golf course, and they'd be like, I don't want to mess with this at all. I'm a home builder. I'm a real estate developer, whatever. I want somebody to come in and build a golf course, open it, tell me how to make money or how to lose less money, because you've been through different cycles where that would happen. And so we did, our thing was early on, we only did really high-end golf, and we were trying to be, so we always got a member for a day. We were trying to create an experience where public golf people could be treated like a private club and treated very nicely. Here's your fee, range balls are included. We're not no nickel and dime you here, do this, blah, blah, blah. That was kind of the original concept. We, of course, branched out into private and, then even some city-owned municipal stuff later on. But in the early days, it was always all, 4-star plus kind of golf that we did. And so developers would call us from sort of day one. We actually, I think in the portfolio, Troon actually was involved in constructing over 150 golf courses over its duration, because people would bring us in early on. We had a construction division, engineering division, so we had people that could do that expertise. So we had a lot of startups from the ground up.
How did y'all manage the downturn in golf? How did that affect business?
Painful. Well, there was a couple of them. There was the 9/11 thing where people stopped traveling, and there was a huge stoppage there, which was a different kind of stoppage, but there was a problem there in travel and we had a big, by the time that happened in 2001, we had quite a bit of resort properties that were quite impacted by that. So that was more of a waited out. You just got to go through the cycle. People get on airplanes again, they do that. The 8, 9, 10, 11 thing was really tough, because you had everything from business travel being banned to people being scared to death about their savings and those things. So yeah, there was a lot of challenges during that time. But from a standpoint of EBITDA at an individual golf course, that was a very tough time. As far as growth of the company, it actually went the other way, because the people who are out there who are marginal operators who were able to do it on their own, let's say the mom and pop operation, all of a sudden we're in trouble. And we could buy things cheaper than they could buy things. We could move people around quickly. We could bring in a seasonal staff for them. So actually, we ended up having some hyper growth during that time frame, because some of the people that were on their own couldn't make it work. So they would call us then. So that probably by 9, 10, 11, we started really seeing some accelerated growth during that time. But there was a lot of suffering. Don't get me wrong. At the individual property levels, there was 30, 40, 50% drops in EBITDA during those time frames.
I know as you guys were growing, success breeds other success, and then you have as they say, the ultimate flattery is imitation. So there were some other companies that started doing what you guys were doing as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of companies out there today. When we were here's a good way to look at it. There's probably of the golf courses that have enough of revenue to consider what we do, which would be the more major golf courses. There's probably X thousand of those out there out of the 16,000 in America that would qualify to that. You take out the little non-holers and the stuff in the middle of nowhere, places that wouldn't really work. And then you say back in 1995, for example, a very small percentage of those were run by management companies, a very tiny amount. And today that's probably up in the 40, 50, 60% range now by management companies. Now, we obviously are way bigger than anybody else, but there are a couple of our competitors that are I think we have one, there's a couple of clubs that are companies around 150 to 200 golf courses. I think we're about 970. But there are other, and there's a lot of guys that do 50, 40, 30, 20. If you think about it, it's a little bit like the hotel business in the old days. If you go back many, many years ago, all the hotels were individually owned and operated. Then you started having the brands, whether it be the Holiday Inn originally, or then Marriott, then Hyatt, then Hilton, and then they consolidated and bought more people, and obviously all that. What you're doing is you're just playing the game of being able to buy things at a better rate, move people around. You have your own 401k program, you have your own insurance platform, you can do things cheaper on a health insurance basis. So all those are the things that help you grow along the way in that mass scale. But we still, the company still tries to operate where, there's a vice president at Troon that will operate, only 12 golf courses. So it's like a little management company in its own, within the big company. You're getting the attention of that one guy running that little 12-unit operation at the corporate level. So that's kind of how it works and how it spins. And of course, I can only give you the 40,000-foot view now because I'm so happily retired that my wife is telling me that Starbucks is hiring. I should get out of the house.
I thought you were playing golf every day. So,
well, I can't play enough. If not my hips and my back, I would play a little bit more. But I'm more of a casual golfer these days. But I'm eligible to play every day that ends in Y. Put it that way.
Obviously, you probably have an affinity for True North, but what are some of your other favorite properties that y'all have?
Well, we ran Turnberry for a long time before the president bought it years ago. They bought that in 2014, we had to negotiate our way through that one because we had the typical he was on The Apprentice back then, so we got the "you're fired" letter. So we had to have a few meetings about that because he wasn't able to fire us. So we had a shall we say some litigation regarding that, which we won, by the way. But then we exited out of there. But so Turnberry is one of my favorite places, and they did a rebuild of that, which turned out really good. It's a terrific place because Turnberry, as you guys know, it's right on the water compared to some of the other courses, which really aren't. It's on the water, and it's quite a lovely place. So Turnberry's a favorite, but my favorite place to that I play golf is where I'm a member of down in New Zealand called Taraiti. That's my favorite place on earth, and we don't have anything to do with that. But which actually, to be honest with you, I have more fun at places that we don't have anything to do with than I do if we do, because I'm the center point of, if I'm there, people say, hey, something's wrong over here, something this, something that. So I'd rather play places we don't operate, to be honest with you, because I don't have to worry about that. But we have some really good properties. We have a place at Kapalua, the Plantation Course and the Bay Course at Kapalua are lovely, where we have the Tournament of Champions. So it's a great spot, and we have a lot of really good ones. We have a place called Gamble Sands, which just opened their second golf course. David McClay Kidd up in the desert area of Washington in the west, kind of in the Onion Wine Country area. Terrific place. So we have some really, really good stuff out there. They're really good places, but we have so many now. I haven't seen all of them, of course, and I never will. But I'm happy for the guys running the company today, because I'm still an interested investor in the company. I'm glad they're doing well, and I wish them well. And I still own the board of directors. I have 4 board meetings a year and 8 phone calls, and that's all I do. That's my so I have 12 I have 4 work days and 8 hours of work in my agenda these days.
Lucky man. One of my favorite properties is Hammock Beach down in Florida. Two
It's a nice
terrific
one.
golf courses.
Yeah, it's very nice. It is. It is. It's in kind of it's in an area where not many people. It's kind of in that I call it a tweener. It's kind of in an area where it should get more traffic than it does because it's a lovely spot. But you have the sort of the TPC up on one side, and you've got the more South Florida stuff on the other side. So it's kind of in that not unknown place, but lesser known place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know till recently that that Troon manages Pine Tree.
That's
Greg
right.
and I played there recently in a pro member, and gosh, the redo, it's fabulous.
I haven't seen it since the redo. I did play a few Alabama Opens there
Yeah.
in the past. So yeah, that was it was always a fun golf course. You had to get through. I always remember that third golf hole. I think it was number 3 on the water there, and trying to not hit it in the water off the tee, and you'd end up pulling it to the left side over there and being kind of dead over there too. So you had a lot of ways to get. It had a big sharp dog leg somewhere too, as I recall, like 4 or 5, and then
Yeah, the next hole, dog
had a
leg
big
left.
yeah, and it had that funky par 5 down the hill, like 6, I think, that you had to get kind of a cut or something off the tee in the old days.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, but
Still
it was a good golf course. I think it was George Cobb originally, I think, who did that. I think.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was in fabulous shape, and it's just
Good.
a lot of fun to play. Yeah.
Good to hear. Well,
I
if it's
want to hear
not,
more
guys,
about Taraiti in New Zealand.
it is the best place I've ever been to play golf, and that says I think it says a lot. So we have Tara Iti, which is a dope golf course. This is the private club, and then we have a private resort, 2 golf courses next door, one by Cor Crenshaw, which is called TRI South, and then TRI North by Doak. So we have 54 holes of golf in the same location. It's a little bit like Spy, Pebble, and Cypress, and Tara Iti being the Cypress part of it. It's crazy. It's so good because it is links, sandy soil, but with good weather. It's California weather with Scottish and Irish quality of golf. It's that good, and it's my favorite place to go. And when we go down there, I'll put it this way: my wife will be down there, say 25 days a year, and she'll play 25 rounds of golf, and she'll play 5 rounds of golf the rest of the year anywhere else. But she'll play every day there. Now, part of that's because she hits a little low hook, which goes a lot further on fescue in that kind of weather. So she does like hitting it further. And she likes being able to putt from 50 yards off the green as well. So that helps. She plays the ground game quite well. And she doesn't play out of bunkers or sand, so she doesn't get sand in her face and her shoes, so she won't play out of. So her caddy has to throw a ball out on the grass always. So she has the Amanda rules. But no, it's a terrific place, guys. It's the best 54-hole experience you'll ever find that close together. And I'm on the West Coast, so for me it's like going to Europe. It's only an hour further than going to Europe from the West Coast, so it's an easy trip for me. And something we enjoy. We'll be there for Christmas and New Year's this year, and then go back again for the member guest in early March. So this is my favorite place.
Wow. Greg just got back from Scotland last week, actually. So
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah. Where did you play over there? Did you play?
Did not play Turnberry.
Yeah. Did you play Muirfield?
We played down around Gullin. We played North Berwick, some courses.
That's great.
In East
Yeah,
Lothian.
that's good stuff. Good stuff.
And then we went over to the West Coast and played Machrihanish and Dunaverty and called it a
It's like the first hole there in Machrihanish. How'd you like that?
That's just was talking about it yesterday. Such a great opening hole. If you got that low left shot, you're playing off the beach or dropping.
The best thing about Scotland are the caddies. They're so funny. I used to play a thing called the International Pro-Am years ago, and I would take members over there to play. So I played, I don't know, 4 or 5 years in the 80s. And I had this guy playing golf, and he was a left-hander. And he was what I would call a scooper. And, you can't be a scooper when you play on fescue. You've got to strike down pretty hard to hit the ball. You can't pick it. So he was a 10 handicapper, but he was miserable there. He could not play at all. It was awful. And so he's a couple of different things that happened, but one of them was he says to his caddy, he says, "Can I get there with a 5-iron?" And the caddy says, "Eventually."
Eventually.
And then at the end of the round, this was the best line I ever heard from a caddy. So he kind of feels bad. He'd been kind of tossing clubs and being kind of a bad guy to caddy, bad player for his caddy, and he he gets finished with it. So he's trying to apologize to his caddy for playing poorly and using a few bad words. So he says to his caddy, he says, "Johnny, have you ever caddied for an asshole bigger than me?" And he says, "Once." Oh, so those are fun days. But yeah, the golf in New Zealand would remind you very much of the golf in Scotland and Ireland, as far as the tight fescue and the ground game and the wind change and how the golf courses play differently each day. But you've got what I would call San Diego weather, which makes it just remarkable to be over there.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's
That's
that would be my ultimate bucket list trip, probably Australia and New Zealand. Just
Yeah, if you go that far, might as well do both for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, the Sand Belt, obviously with Royal Melbourne and Kingston Heath and Commonwealth Metropolitan. There's great golf there in that Sand Belt area around Blackrock and Melbourne.
When you kind of look back now that you're retired, do you find it a little bit amazing that a kid from Fort Payne could, have the stature you have in the game today?
Yeah, I mean, I think look, I was blessed to get a lot of good breaks, but yeah, I think back sometime I could be doing something far different today, and could be a struggling attorney in a small town, not making that much money, and playing golf on the weekends or whatever. And who knows? I mean, I've been very fortunate, so I do appreciate my roots very much. I still have a lot of good friends back there, from university and from high school, and still see them on occasion and tell some stories. I mean, all of our stories, we're all better than we used to be. We've all gotten a lot better at our athletics than we were. We were all more handsome in high school than we really were, and we dated the more pretty girls when we were, as we talk about it today, and our athletic prowess was incredible. But so everything gets embellished a bit, but happy to be where I am, and happy to have that background, and still have a lot of dear friends in Birmingham and in Fort Payne, and pretty much all over the Southeast. So I do get back there when I can, and love it. I've had a very blessed life, and happy to be where I am, and happy to be able to look back with some fun memories about this game, which has been so important to me.
yeah. I know you're a big Alabama fan. Do you get to many games?
Yeah, we'll go to 3 this year. We'll go to Wisconsin, Tennessee, and LSU. We'll go to 3. We have season tickets, and we've my wife always says, "Wow, honey, these tickets are really good for free." And I'm like, "Well, honey, these aren't. I assure you, these are not free. There's a reason that we get these. Just check the Amex card in the checkbook, and you'll see why the university loves us so much."
Which is your favorite hole at Terrapin Hills, and which is your least favorite hole at Terrapin Hills?
Oh gosh, oh my gosh. The worst hole used to be 16 before they made it a par 3. It's a little better than it used to be. 16 was the one that went over the hill, the blind tee shot, which is an awful golf hole. Let's see. Good golf holes. Number 4, the par 5 along the creek. There was a pretty good golf hole. It was the longest par 5 on the golf course, but you still could maybe get around it. So that was probably my favorite hole. Would have been 4 or 17. I think 17 was a really quality little downhill par 4 with a fairly tight driving area. You had to kind of position it in. There was a 3-wooder driver. Worst golf hole out there. Let's see. There's a couple that aren't great. 15, the short par 4 is not very good. 15, actually 14 is another good golf hole. 14 is a good golf hole. Let's see. On the front 9, 6 is not a very good golf hole. Had a kind of a hidden green. That was kind of a crappy hole. But hey, I didn't know the difference back then. I probably thought they were all good holes back then, especially if I could make a birdie or something.
Yeah.
18's not very good. That's another one. But, hey, it was where we grew up playing, so we had fond memories of it. I mean, but Terrapin Hills was such a step forward from where Don and I grew up playing at DeSoto Country Club, which was this little 9-hole thing that we would circle all the time. So we thought Terrapin Hills was like freaking Wingfoot. We didn't know the difference. And so, and then we got to we started playing junior golf tournaments. We're like, wait a minute, there's a bunker in front of a green. You got to hit it over the bunker and then stop it. How does that work? And that's when, back in those days, Don and I were rifling in four irons about head high and figuring out why they wouldn't stop, because we'd never had a bunker in front of a green in our lives. We'd never seen that. And so that was kind of a big growing up period when you start playing golf course. I remember the first big golf course we played as young men were kids. It was probably Olympia Spa down in Dothan, which was a brute back in the day, about 7,400 yards long. Back when with a lot of golf balls, 7,400 yards long. And the 9th and 18th holes were both like 490 uphill, and just a beast of a golf course. And you're like, wow, this is not what we're playing all the time. And so you finally kind of figured out we better make some changes here if we're going to be competitive at a collegiate level, and to be able to to play a bit better. So yeah, that was a great awakening for sure from where we started out.
Yeah, Olympia Spa, especially 18, going up
Oh
the
my
hill.
gosh. Oh, crazy. And you got to remember, back at that time, 265 was a big tee shot. 265 was 265 uphill was a really big tee shot, which would leave you 230 in. So it was a lot of lumber being hit to that. And of course, everybody was playing with wooden clubs back then, persimmon clubs with an old Titleist wound golf ball or a Pro Staff or Hogan golf ball, whatever they were in those days.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So being from Fort Payne, did you ever rub elbows with the band Alabama?
A little bit. I was out of there pretty quickly, so I've met those guys, and they used to be called. They originally were I think they were called Wild Country was their original name, and they're actually a rock band at first. So they transitioned from being kind of a rock band to cover band to they ended up in Myrtle. I think they ended up in Myrtle Beach was the story, and they started playing clubs up there and got pretty big, and then had a nice little run. For sure. So they're certainly the most famous people from Fort Payne, Alabama. So we got to see them in concert a couple times, and enjoy those guys. They were sort of good old country boys for sure.
So when we had Don on and talked with him a little bit, we didn't put it on the air, but I'd like to get a clarification on a Krispy Kreme story.
So you really want to hear that story?
Sure.
Well, listen. This would have been Don at 17 and me at 15, and we or somehow decided, and we were two of the most straight-laced kids you'd ever would see. And part of that was because both our mothers were so mean that we would never cross them. I mean, we had, and they would consider themselves the two meanest moms in town. As a matter of fact, I went back to see a friend, and he picked me up to take me out to Terrapin Hills for a drink from the airport there in town, and my mom met me, and then she says to my friend Tim, she says, "Tim, now you have him at my house by 6 o'clock." And he says, "Yes, ma'am, Miss, I sure will." We got in the car, and he says, "I'm 50-something years old, and your mom still scares the crap out of me." So, but anyway, so Don and I cook up this thing. I'm telling my mom I'm spending the night with him. He's telling his mom he's spending the night with me, and we're going to go out and just do something crazy. Well, he had this 1969 blue Volkswagen Bug, and we're like, "What are we going to do?" So we messed around for a while, and we can't think of anything to do. So we decided to drive 90 miles to Birmingham to get Krispy Kreme donuts. That's our big wild night out. And then we get back into town, and we're like, what do we do now? We got no place to sleep. The Volkswagen's not big enough for us to sleep in. So we're going to sneak back into his house. So he lives on a hill, so we drive up the top of the hill. We turn the Volkswagen off. We're going to coast into the driveway to be very quiet. And we're going to slip into the house and, go to his bedroom, and we'll wake up in the morning. His mom will figure out a story then. So we get there, and he said, "Now listen, the kitchen floor creaks. We didn't take our shoes off." So we kind of walked in there with holding our shoes and walking in there. And sure enough, we make a noise, but it didn't even matter because our mothers figured out we were lying, and they called each other already. And she's sitting there with a belt, Now we're 17 and 15, and Shirley Shirey starts whipping, and she does the old one-word whip. Don't you ever lie to me again. And then she looks at me and she says, and your mother told me to whip your butt too. And then she spanks me. So there's corporal punishment back when you could do corporal punishment, but that was a humbling experience, and it's one of the reasons I always tell my wife I'm a really bad liar. I couldn't get away with it back then, can't get away with it now, so I get caught every time I try, so I don't try anymore. But yeah, that was Don and Dana's Wild Night Out Krispy Kreme donuts.
Thanks for sharing that. I think all of us guys of a certain age can relate to that story very well.
Were the Krispy Kremes worth it in the end run?
No, they weren't. They were not. We had something much different in mind. Meeting beautiful women or something like that. Just did not work out that way.
So away from golf, what are your interests and what do you enjoy doing?
I'm a garage musician. I love guitar. I play guitar. I travel a lot. We love wine. We spend about almost 2 months a year in Europe. June and September, pretty much the months we're gone, and we obviously go to New Zealand in part of the year. And then we have this place up in the mountains where we get to July and August kind of up here, and then of course Scottsdale, Phoenix, PV, Paradise Valley where we live. It's fantastic from October to May. It's wonderful there. So we're usually there playing golf or hanging out or visiting friends, and we have 5 dogs, so that's basically our kids now, our 5 animals. So we keep them around and they make us happy. And I always tell my wife when I open the door, I have 5 dogs who love me, and they say, where have you been all my life? And my wife says to me, oh, it's just you.
And the dogs don't sneak away to get Krispy Kreme.
And they, this is one thing about dogs compared to kids. They don't break curfew. The principal never calls about them. They don't want to borrow the car. So all these great things. They're great, and they're always happy to see you. That's the other wonderful thing. I take the garbage out, come back. They're like, "Wow, where have you been for the last 45 seconds?"
Oh, that's funny. So, I understand that you do have a good music story, maybe involving Rod Stewart.
I had a very lucky encounter with Rod Stewart. So yeah, it's kind of a musical highlight for me. Which I was in Portofino. He had just gotten married to Penny Lancaster at that time, and still married to Penny Lancaster. And so that's for Rod, that's a good thing, and for me, it's a good thing. I've had a few of those myself. But no, so I'm in Portofino, and Rod just got married. His wedding, and so he is over in the village. We're up on a hotel on the side of the mountain, the hill there. I'm down there, and this band's playing, and Rod Stewart walks up, and he's sitting there having a drink in this little bar on the cobblestone down there. It's an Italian band. But they're playing American or English music, rock music, and so people start. There's Rod Stewart, by the way, blah blah blah, and so people start saying. Would you do a song? Would you do a song? And he says, no, I don't do that. And then finally he has a drink or two, and Rod's going to do a song. So he gets up, and he says, yeah, I'll do Stay With Me. And band says, great. And the guitarist says, I don't know it. Well, Dana says, I know it. So a hand goes up, grab the guy's guitar. So I played Stay With Me with Rod Stewart in Portofino, which was kind of a nice story. So I'm glad I knew the song. It was perfect.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. An encounter with greatness.
Yeah, it was a fun 3 minutes for sure.
Great. Chris, you got some more for Dana?
No, Dana, thank you so much for carving out a few minutes for us. We appreciate it. The Cart Barn, we were just telling stories about people from Alabama that are involved with golf, and I think this is a great story, and I really appreciate the opportunity for you to stop by the Cart Barn and for us to kind of share your story.
Well, it's good to talk to you guys. It's been fun, and it brought back. I'm surprised those stories made it through there, but I think I know where they came from. So I have to tell Don to kind of keep some of this stuff to himself. He was on the down low a bit further. But Don and I've
I
shared
will
a lot of.
never reveal my.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to have Don as a friend. I've got some great friends back there. Bob Barrett from. I don't know if you've ever had Bob on your show. You should. Bob is a great guy that's still on the Troon board as well. But we've had a lot of fun with our friends back there. Matter of fact, we were just back there. I was on the East Coast a bit and dropped in to see Bob at his Lake Martin house and dropped in to see Don in Gulf Shores. So it was fun to see them.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Dana, it's been a life well lived in the world of golf. Great to see people from Fort Payne, Alabama, doing so well and having done so well and contributed to the game of golf.
Trust me, I thought I might be working at Hosier Mill in Fort Payne a long time ago, so I'm glad I'm here. It's good to be here.
You could be folding shirts in DeSoto Country Club,
or making socks. Who knows? I mean, who knows what could have happened? I'm very fortunate and very lucky, and I'm really fortunate to have the life I've had, and I'm super excited about having more of it. So every day to me is a holiday, and every day is a great one. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, thanks again, and we appreciate you stopping by, and maybe we can get you back on and tell a few more stories sometime.
Anytime, guys. Let me know.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. Take care, guys.
So we want to thank Dana Garmany for his time on this week's podcast. I thought it was a fascinating story to hear how his life in golf kind of evolved, and he mentioned, I think he only plays golf on days it ends in Y, which that's the good life. And he doesn't just play local, man. He plays all over the world. So it was great talking to Dana, and hopefully we can get him back on at some point to talk a little bit more about Trune Golf and how it's kind of it changed the face of the golf business. I think I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say that.
No, thanks, Dana. We appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule, and maybe it even taking you away from playing some golf, but for sitting down with us in the cart barn and visiting, and enjoyed that time. Please be sure to check in with us every week. We post a new podcast every Wednesday, and we're on all the places you get podcasts, and especially on YouTube. We're trying to build our YouTube channel up. We would appreciate it if you'd give us a thumbs up and a like there and a follow, and it would help us out a lot.
And tell your friends.
Yeah. But thanks again for tuning in. Catch us again next week for another edition of the Cart Barn Podcast.